My girlfriend changed to astrology after she met a friend at a new job. Now my girlfriend wants an open relationship because it is more beneficial for the chakra. I walked into the apartment after work, exhausted, expecting the usual. Maybe a quiet evening with my girlfriend, maybe a movie. Instead, I found her sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by candles, wearing a flowing dress I had never seen before. The entire living room smelled like burning herbs. She looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite place, then said, completely seriously, "We need to open our relationship. It's necessary for my energy flow." I thought she was joking at first. She wasn't. I stood there for a moment, processing what she had just said. My girlfriend, who had been completely normal up until a few months ago, was now telling me that monogamy was restricting her energy flow. I finally asked, "What are you talking about?" She sighed, as if I was too simple to understand. "I've been doing a lot of self-reflection, and I realize that exclusivity is limiting my spiritual growth. I need to be free to explore connections with other people. It's better for my chakras." I had no idea how to respond to that. Just 6 months ago, she was rolling her eyes at horoscope memes. Now she was talking about chakras like it was a life or death situation. It all started when she got a new job at some small marketing agency. She was excited at first, saying the office vibe was chill, her co-workers were friendly, and the workload wasn't too bad. But after a few weeks, I noticed some changes. She started dressing differently. Loose, flowy outfits, lots of rings, weirdly specific crystal necklaces. She stopped drinking coffee because it messed with her vibrations. She started talking about Mercury retrograde like it was a weather forecast at first. I thought she was just picking up some harmless new interests. But then she started mentioning this new coworker. Sasha. Sasha wasn't just into astrology. She was obsessed with it. She had an entire worldview based on the movement of the planets and believed everything in life could be explained by birth charts. My girlfriend started spending more and more time with her, going to energy readings and moon rituals. I thought it was just a phase. I even played along a few times, doing some basic rituals with her because, honestly, it seemed kind of fun in a silly way. I figured it was like astrology memes, something you laugh at but don't actually take seriously. But this? Asking for an open relationship for the sake of her energy? This wasn't funny anymore. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "So, you're saying you want to sleep with other people because it's good for your chakras?" She nodded, completely serious. "Monogamy is a human construct. It traps us in outdated expectations. Love and energy should flow freely. That's what Sasha helped me realize." "Of course, Sasha," that I sat down on the couch, rubbing my temples. "You do realize we've been together for 3 years, right? And we've never had a problem with monogamy before?" She gave me a soft, almost pitying smile. "That's because I wasn't fully awakened yet. But now I understand myself better. I don't want to be restricted by societal norms. I want to explore deeper connections." "By sleeping with random guys?" Her expression darkened. "You're being close-minded. It's not about sex. It's about growth. It's about meeting people whose energy aligns with mine. You can do it too. It'll be good for you." I let out a dry laugh. "You think me sleeping around is going to help my energy?" "Yes," she said, her eyes lighting up. "It will open up your heart chakra. You'll feel lighter, freer. You won't be held back by jealousy or possession." "That's just your ego talking." I stared at her, realizing that the person in front of me wasn't the same girl I started dating. The girl who used to cuddle with me on the couch, binge-watch bad reality shows, and roll her eyes at people who talked about energies. Now she was parroting Sasha's words like they were gospel. I needed to understand how we got here. It didn't take long for me to piece things together. When she first started working at her new job, everything seemed normal. She was just making friends, getting used to a new environment. But then she met Sasha. I didn't know much about her at first, except that she was a few years older and had this intense vibe about her. She didn't just believe in astrology. She lived and breathed it. As I thought about it, I realized that Sasha had a certain hold over her. She wasn't just a coworker. She was the kind of person who could convince someone that their entire life needed to change based on the positions of the stars. I'd seen it before. People like Sasha had this ability to manipulate those who were still figuring themselves out. Sasha's influence didn't stop at her wardrobe or the crystals she brought into the office. It bled into my girlfriend's entire outlook on life. She started acting different, distant at times, overly sensitive at others, like she was always trying to align herself with some higher power. It was like she was becoming a different person, someone I didn't even recognize anymore. It was strange. At first, I didn't mind her being into astrology or crystals. Hell, I even bought her a couple of books on the subject for her birthday because I thought it was cute. But when Sasha started having more and more influence, I could tell this wasn't just a passing phase. It was deeper, more consuming. One day, she came home talking about how her aura was being blocked by some negative energy in the apartment. She insisted that we needed to clear the space with sage. I agreed, though I didn't really believe in any of it. I figured I'd just let her do her thing and we'd move on with our lives. But the next day, she came home from work and told me that I had to stop neglecting my spiritual health. I thought she was joking. I was wrong. That was when things began to spiral. The conversation didn't end the way I thought it would. In fact, it didn't really end at all. She just kept talking, as if we were discussing any ordinary decision, like choosing a place to eat for dinner. There was no urgency in her voice, no desperation, just a calm, deliberate explanation that felt almost rehearsed. I've been thinking a lot, she said, about us, about our relationship. I don't think monogamy is working for me anymore. I froze. What do you mean it's not working for you? She looked at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place, an emotion I hadn't seen from her before. I feel like we've hit a limit, you know? Like, we love each other, but I need something more. I need to experience more. I tried to understand her words, but they didn't make sense. What do you mean more? We've been doing just fine. Why is this suddenly an issue? She paused, and I could see her struggling to find the right words. It's not about you. It's about me. I need to expand. I need to explore other connections. I could feel the knot in my stomach tighten. You want an open relationship? I said. Flatly, she nodded. Yes. I think it would help both of us grow, individually. I need to feel free to explore without the pressure of exclusivity. The words hung in the air between us, and I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. Was she serious? I thought about the life we'd built together. The dinners, the late-night talks, the weekend trips. We had a rhythm. We were comfortable, happy even. We had never talked about needing more, and I couldn't understand why it was suddenly an issue for her. Why now? I asked. We've been fine for years. Why is this coming up all of a sudden? She looked at me, almost apologetically. It's not sudden. I've been thinking about this for a while. I've changed, and I need more for myself and for my relationships. Monogamy feels limiting to me now. I can't explain it any other way. I ran a hand through my hair. So you want us to be with other people, and that's supposed to make things better for us? She nodded again. It's about freedom. It's about not feeling tied down. I know it's unconventional, but I think it would open up our hearts to new possibilities. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. This wasn't about freedom or growth. This felt like an excuse, a rationalization for something deeper. I wasn't sure if she even understood what she was asking for. Or maybe she did, but just didn't care anymore. I tried to understand her, but nothing about what she was saying made sense. The girl I had been with for years didn't talk like this. This wasn't the person I thought I knew. Don't you think this is a bit much? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. We've never talked about this before. Why now? Why change everything? She seemed to gather herself, as if she had been waiting for me to ask this question. It's not about changing everything, she said softly. It's about evolving, about being true to who I am. I can't keep limiting myself by just one connection, one way of living. I need to experience more, to grow more. I felt the air shift between us. She wasn't asking for small changes anymore. She wasn't asking for something temporary. This was about altering the foundation of everything we had together, and I wasn't sure I was ready to do that. You're saying you need to be free, I said, trying to wrap my mind around it. Free from us? From what we've built? Her eyes softened, but I could still feel the tension in her voice. It's not about breaking what we have. It's about expanding. I can't grow if I'm limited to one relationship, one set of expectations. I need to be open to other experiences, to allow myself to explore things that are beyond what we have here. I could feel my heart sinking. So, you want us to live differently now, to experience things outside of what we've known? She nodded, but there was a hesitation in her expression now. Yes, I think it would help me, and in turn, it would help us both grow. I know it's unconventional, but it's what I need. I sat there in silence, trying to make sense of her words. They felt like they were directed at something bigger than just our relationship. They felt like an excuse to chase something, something I wasn't sure I could follow, something I wasn't sure even existed. Is this what you really want? I asked. To change everything, to try to be something else? Is this what you need to feel fulfilled? She paused, looking at me with a mixture of sadness and resolve. Yes, I need to open myself up more, to experience more of the world. It's not about us falling apart. It's about me finding a way to be more connected, to the world, to myself. And if you truly love me, you'll understand that. I wasn't sure I could understand. I wasn't sure I wanted to. Maybe I can't do this, I said quietly, my words more certain now. Maybe I can't be part of something that feels so different. I don't know if I can keep up with this change. Her expression flickered, a mixture of surprise and hurt crossing her face, but she didn't argue. She simply nodded. I understand. I know this is hard, but I could feel it. Something was already slipping away. Something between us that I couldn't get back. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. I could see it in her eyes, this certainty that this was the right path for her, that her decision had already been made. There was no room for doubt, no space for negotiation. She had changed, and somehow, I hadn't kept up. That I thought about everything we had built, our routines, our plans for the future, the shared experiences that had brought us closer. It wasn't just about love, it was about trust, about knowing that no matter what, we were in it together. But now it felt like she was telling me that all of that wasn't enough, that it had never been enough. You don't understand, do you? She said softly, almost like a whisper. I'm not asking you to give up on us. I'm asking you to trust me, to let me grow. If you really care about me, you'll see that this is what I need to move forward. Her words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't just asking for change. She was framing it as a test, as if my love for her depended on me accepting this new version of her. But that wasn't it. I had loved the person she had been. The one who laughed at silly memes and didn't make everything about spiritual enlightenment or self-discovery. I had loved the way we understood each other without needing to over-explain. But now, it felt like she was asking me to love someone else, someone I didn't recognize. I took a deep breath. I don't know if I can do that, I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. I don't know if I can just let go of everything we had. She reached for my hand, her touch soft but insistent. Please, try to understand. I'm not asking you to change. I'm just asking for the freedom to explore. We can still love each other, just in a different way. I looked at her, seeing the sadness in her eyes, but also something else, something distant. It was like she was already moving on, preparing herself for the life she wanted to live without me. I don't know if I can be a part of this, I said finally. It feels like I'm losing you. She pulled her hand back, her expression clouded with regret. I'm not leaving you. I'm just expanding. I'm not asking you to walk away from me, but I need you to let me grow, even if it means we're not the same. I knew then that it was over. Maybe not in the way she thought, but in the way that mattered to me. I couldn't live in a relationship where I wasn't sure who I was loving anymore. I couldn't keep holding on to something that was slipping through my fingers, something that wasn't the same anymore. I think I need to go, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this. Her face crumpled for a second, the hurt visible, but she didn't try to stop me. She just nodded slowly, like she had already prepared herself for this moment. And just like that, I realized that I had lost her. Not to another person, not to a specific event, but to something intangible. To an idea of who she thought she could be. I left. And I didn't look back. I don't know if there's ever a clear moment when you realize it's over. Maybe it's when you hear the words, or maybe it's when you feel the shift, when the space between two people becomes too wide to close. For me, it was a combination of both. I spent the next few days and a days, replaying the conversation over and over in my mind, trying to find the point where things had gone wrong. I kept asking myself if I could have done something differently, if I could have seen the signs earlier. But the truth was, I couldn't have. She had changed in ways I hadn't been able to keep up with, and I had tried to ignore it for as long as I could. I wanted to tell myself that she wasn't making a mistake, that she was just searching for something, and maybe one day she'd realize she didn't need to leave me behind to find it. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about that. It wasn't about freedom or growth. It was about her wanting something new, something different from what we had. It hurt. I think it always hurts when someone changes and you don't recognize them anymore. It's not the end of love, but it's the end of what you thought you had, the end of who you thought they were. I've been trying to move on since then. It hasn't been easy, but I've learned something important. You can't hold on to something that's no longer there, no matter how hard you try. We didn't work out. And I don't think we ever could have. Evie realized that sometimes love isn't enough to hold two people together. Sometimes the changes we make, the ones that are supposed to help us grow, can pull us apart instead. And that's a lesson I won't forget.